Summer is here and it is hot. It is warm where I am, but I know it's very hot in other parts of the world. And my heart goes out to those who are struggling with the heat right now. There are, of course, a lot of different ways that you can beat the heat. One way would be to take off your shirt, but maybe that makes you feel uncomfortable, or it might not be an option for you for various reasons. And besides, if you weren't wearing a shirt, how would you be able to wear these sweet graphic tees from this video's sponsor, Into the AM? Into the AM are purveyors of elevated everyday apparel, which is a fancy way of saying they make clothes that look great, that feel super great, that are easy to care for, that are lightweight, that are going to keep you comfortable and looking fresh through this summer heat. Into the AM has dozens and dozens of exclusively licensed graphic designs, such as this Peace Out Earth tee that you see me wearing right here. This is one of my favorite summer shirts from them right now. I just love the astronaut just chilling there. Just love those vibes. You can find this and many, many more on Into the AM's website. You can get 3 exclusively licensed graphic tees from Into the AM for $60, and you can save an additional 10% using the link down at the top of the video description or using the offer code the ASMR Nerd at checkout. But it's not just graphic tees that Into the AM offers. They also have other summer appropriate clothes. They have tank tops. They have very comfortable shorts, which I have honestly been rocking like most of the days this summer through this heat. Super comfy, easy to care for, just like their t-shirts, along with all kinds of other stuff. So make sure you click through on that link and check out the variety, the wealth of various items that Into the AM has for you. And once again, you can use offer code the ASMR Nerd and click through on that link down in the video description to save 10% on your entire order. Big thanks to Into the AM for sponsoring today's video. Hello, my friends. It's Nick, the ASMR Nerd. And this right here is the Corsair K70 mechanical keyboard, but not the one that I'm reviewing in today's video. No, this is the Corsair K70 from 2013, my very first mechanical keyboard, the one that started it all, and one that you have probably heard before. It's featured in my channel intro as well as in my channel's most popular video, a typing sounds video with this bad boy right here. This was an awesome keyboard for 2013, and it's one that I used and enjoyed for many, many years. A venerable keyboard, to be sure. This right here is also the Corsair K70. This is 2022's Corsair K70 RGB TKL OPX edition with Corsair's new Optical-Mechanical OPX switches. Aside from the obvious difference in size and coloration, you would be forgiven for not being able to tell this keyboard apart from the one that I showed you at first, the 2013 model. Visually, not a whole lot has changed in Corsair's design. However, that would be selling this keyboard short. 2022's K70 RGB TKL has a lot going on under the hood that the old one didn't. Not the least of which is, of course, those opto-mechanical switches I mentioned. A typical mechanical switch uses contact between 2 pieces of metal to determine when the switch is actuated, pressed down. This keyboard right here with the opto-mechanical switches uses a beam of light And when a key is pressed down, that beam of light is intercepted, and that is how the keyboard knows when the key switch has been actuated. There are other changes too, of course. This keyboard has full color RGB backlighting, whereas the old one only had a fixed blue backlight. This one uses Corsair's latest Axon processor, which enables polling rates, that's the rate at which the keyboard communicates with the host device, of up to 8,000 hertz. That's 8,000 times per second, or 8 times faster than the typical 1,000 hertz polling rate of most USB keyboards. That is ludicrously fast, probably faster than any human could perceive. And that is part of Corsair's drive with this keyboard. This is part of Corsair's Champion series, which is aimed squarely at esports enthusiasts, pro gamers, if you will, and everything about the marketing for this keyboard makes it sound fast. Gotta go fast. But surely it's not just the internals and the technical specifications, the speed, that sets this keyboard apart from its nearly 9-year-old ancestor that I got all those years ago. No, surely Corsair has improved upon the typing experience, the feel, the sound, the day-to-day usage of this keyboard, especially in light of all the advances in the mechanical keyboard enthusiast segment that have occurred over the last almost decade, but certainly over the last 5 years. Surely Corsair would learn some lessons from those and implement them into this new K70, right? Well, watch on to find out, my friends. Watch on to find out. Today's Corsair K70 was supplied by mechkeys.com, and you can check out MechKeys through the link down at the top of the video description. There is a link directly to the Corsair K70 RGB TKL OPX edition. It resells for $150 on MechKeys, and if you're interested in it, click on through, check it out, and while you're at it, check out some of the other cool products that MechKeys has in stock there. They have a very wide selection. Big shout out to MechKeys for providing today's review sample for this video. Well, without further ado, I think it's time that we dive in and take a much closer, a very thorough look at Corsair's new K70 RGB TKL OPX and see if it stacks up today. And here we have the Corsair K70 RGB TKL Optical Edition in its box. And the first thing that immediately jumps out to me, anyway, is that this is clearly a package designed for the Chinese market, or at least a Pan-Asian market. But we have a fair bit of Chinese on the front here, as well as English. Looks like everything is Chinese and English. So just bear in mind that if you are ordering this from MechKeys, who sent over this product sample for this review here today, it's possible that you will get a version like this rather than something exclusively for the North American or European markets. In the long run, I don't think it makes any difference, really, as long as everything continues to be bilingual with, English as well. Then that's probably fine, as long as we have English on the manual inside, for example. But I just thought I would draw it to your attention. Aside from that, this is pretty much what I expect a Corsair peripheral box to look like. We have a big glossy image of the keyboard on the top front here, surrounded by this kind of carbon fiber gamer-esque kind of pattern in black. On the left side here we have quite a bit of information. Actually, it tells us this is an Optical-Mechanical gaming keyboard. sturdy aluminum frame with the Axon processor. That's what they call their chip, I guess. 8 times faster processing, it claims. Faster processing of what? I don't know. And durable PBT double shot keycaps. That is awesome. That's really good to see. Champion series, which is the overall series, I guess. And then we have a little switch info box down here. This is actually a sticker. So this box here is probably used for the non-optical version as well. And they just stick on the switch type after. It says here Corsair OPX key switch, Optical-Mechanical, RGB, linear, and hyperfast. Guarantee for 150 million keystrokes, which is more than your average mechanical switch. And that's probably because there are fewer moving parts in a mechanical or in an optical mechanical switch, I should say. The bottom right here says it supports PC, Mac, and interestingly Xbox Series X and S. I don't think I've ever seen that advertised on a keyboard before. Also supports Corsair's iCUE software. So we will be checking that out later in the video as well. Flipping around the front here, some more information, sort of repeating what we've seen on the front. And Corsair's slogan, I guess, press the advantage. This is really geared towards sort of an esports theme, whether that's what it's actually used for ultimately, hard to say, but that seems to be the audience that Corsair's targeting with their branding here. Everything is hyper fast, tournament ready, that sort of thing. So right there, hyper fast Corsair OPX RGB switches 8,000 hertz hyper polling rate and 4,000 hertz key scan with Corsair Axon. I guess that's what they're getting at with the 8 times faster. So that's very fast. That means that the keyboard communicates with the host device 8,000 times a second rather than the 1,000 hertz polling rate, which is typical. Whether you as a human can possibly notice or appreciate the difference, that's another matter entirely. But at least at a technical level, it is fast, I guess. Full N-key rollover, 100% anti-ghosting, as we expect of pretty much all keyboards these days. 8 megs of onboard storage with dynamic profile system. Corsair claims you can store up to 50 profiles on board, which is good. That's quite handy. Not that you'll ever use all 50, but the online profile or onboard profile storage is welcome. 32-bit ARM Cortex processor, and they claim it weighs a little under a kilogram or a hair under 2 pounds. Fair enough. Contents: keyboard, cable, manual. Looks like it does not come with a switch puller or a keycap puller or any additional keycaps. On the back, I suspect we will see variations of what we've seen elsewhere, but here we have a picture once again of the keyboard. A tournament switch. This is kind of interesting. It's a hardware switch that unlocks macros and lighting for distraction-free gameplay. Presumably that could be used by tournament organizers to ensure and enforce a no macros, no cheating kind of situation. If all the competitors, I guess, in an esports tournament were using this particular keyboard, you could do that. Built for competitive play. There's that esports bent again. A portable, space-saving 10 kilos design. It's a little ironic they say that because, yeah, you know, you save some space over a full-size keyboard. You have no numpad here, of course, but it's actually kind of a chunky keyboard in other respects. 10 keyless is definitely not the most compact form factor for this kind of functionality. And, you know, it's got kind of a big chin and a big forehead down here. You could definitely maintain the same functionality, but slim it down substantially to something more like a 75% form factor. But you would then be sacrificing all these dedicated media keys and such. So, you know, I don't think it looks bad, but it certainly isn't what I would call compact. This is pretty chunky by modern keyboard standards. Durable PBT double shot keycaps. We'll take a close look at those, but that's really great. It's high quality plastic and a high quality manufacturing. Corsair Axon hyper processing technology. Sturdy and stylish aluminum frame. Yes, of course, the aluminum frame has long been sort of the characteristic aesthetic of these Corsair K series keyboards. And you know, it confers a feeling of solidity and quality, so we'll be checking that out. Detachable USB Type-C cable, that is great to see. Really glad they've finally switched to detachable cables. And I think this is a picture of the tournament switch here. This is just talking about software and hardware support. So on the Xboxes, no iCUE software support, of course, and only 1000 hertz polling rate. On PC and Mac, though, you can do both of those. Okay, well then, that's a lot. Let's open this up. Overall, this package looks like it's designed for retail. It's like designed to sit on a store shelf rather than just something that you order online, which is not surprising given Corsair's global presence and you know, brick and mortar presence. All right. Okay, so inside we have really no padding to speak of around the sides. Not much here or here. Nothing on the front at all, actually. It's just empty. We do have a bit of padding along the back top edge here, just in the form of a cardboard buffer. And then on the top, we do have this piece of foam, which presumably holds things in place, but isn't going to provide a lot of protection from bumps or gouges. So I'm actually pretty surprised this is not better protected for shipping and such, but clearly Corsair can get away with it. They feel confident doing that. So we have the keyboard here in just a basic plastic bag. Nothing else on top. Let's see if there's other stuff hiding below. Just put the keyboard over here for a moment. And here we have nothing. A whole lot of nothing. This bright yellow aesthetic, which, you know, contrasts against the black. Very eye-catching. That kind of carbon fiber texture still going on here. And a QR code for the manual, it looks like. So they offer that digitally, of course, but do they offer a paper manual? That's what I want to know. They do. Okay, underneath we have a plastic bag with a USB cable. Safety information. Maybe this isn't even a manual. I don't know. And a Corsair limited warranty, which is all in English, which which is nice to see, or in Chinese. So it looks like everything's sort of bilingual throughout. I suspect this is warranted for a year, but let's see. Any replacement product will be warranted for the remainder of the original warranty period or 30 days. Yeah. It must say somewhere in here. The warranty period will vary by specific product as identified in your user documentation. Is this not the user documentation? Weird. It actually doesn't say on here, I don't think. Interesting. I'm sure it says on their website, but still. Okay, let's move this box aside. And let's take a peek at the USB cable. Basic plastic bag. And here we have a nicely braided cable, actually. We've got a hook and loop cable wrap here. And the cable feels solid and supple. This feels nice and thick. We've got a plastic wrapped housings here. That's kind of nice. Plastic on the ends though, not aluminum. Got the Corsair logo, the sail logo there. It's actually kind of nice. It's got a little bit of texture right up at the end here. Will help with grabbing it, unplugging it, plugging it in. So then on this end we also have plastic wrap. There we go. Once again, nicely textured on the USB-A end and the Corsair logo. So, that's a high quality feeling cable. Like I said, the sleeving is nice, it's soft, but nice and thick. So that cable will serve well, I'm sure. Aside from that, we just had this safety information, which, gosh, is international. It looks like, yeah, we've got all kinds of languages in here. So maybe this is an international package. But no user guide, interestingly. That must be online. Okay, well, let's take a look at the board itself. I must admit, I'm a little bit surprised by the overall lack of pack-ins for this package. Many other keyboards that I have reviewed have at least a couple of cursory bits and pieces, whether it's the switch puller, keycap puller, extra keycaps or whatever, but we are pretty minimal here. The very basics, just the keyboard and the cable, really. Anyway, here is the board. And it is, a fairly sharp-looking board. Personally, I find the design language to be a bit dated, and that might be because my very first keyboard was, of course, a Corsair board as well, a K70, and so and really the design has not changed since then. We have this elevated forehead up here that contains the media controls. We have this aluminum top plate. We have this curled front edge here. My old K70 actually came with a wrist rest. This clearly does not. In terms of the layout, it is a standard 10 keyless layout, which means it's just a basic layout, which lacks the numpad over here. One thing I will say, to Corsair's credit, is they have finally opted for standard size bottom row keys. It used to be that Corsair had weird sizing for their bottom row keys here, and they that precluded use of other aftermarket keycap kits. Whereas here, you could swap these out with any aftermarket keycaps, and it would work because it's a standard layout. You guys hearing that? Listen. That's so weird. It's like that's the sound of all the switches, I think. Is every single one wobbly? Is that the springs? I don't know what we're hearing there. That's really strange. Anyway, well, we'll get to the bottom of it, but up along the top here, we have dedicated media keys. Always nice to see. They are soft plastic, or not soft, but a matte plastic. You have stop, for or reverse, play, pause, forward. They have quite a bit of travel to them. They actually feel pretty solid. I appreciate that. It's not just a shallow travel, it's a nice big thocky click. We have indicator LEDs here. Looks for caps lock and something. Not num lock, scroll lock, I guess, since there's no numpad here. Up at the top center, we have the Corsair badge. I'm really kind of surprised this doesn't come covered with some kind of plastic, because it's very shiny and gets very grimy easily, and sticky, apparently. There's kind of a sticky spot on it here. Yeah, that strikes me as the kind of thing you would normally have a piece of plastic over, but they do not appear to here. Next to that, we have, what is this? Maybe a profile button, backlight button, some kind of a lock button. Not sure what that is. Top right, we have a mute and a volume roller, which, no, I thought maybe it would also be a button that could click in, but it is not. It crunched once and then never again. So it's got a kind of a knurled texture to it. Actually, it's that same texture we saw on the box. It scrolls smoothly, no detents in it, just smooth scrolling. Other than that, let's move around to the sides. So we have one little nice feature here, just a little detail. It says K70 over here. That looks good. Very small, very subtle. I do find this kind of funny. It's very big. I don't know if it lights up. We'll find out. Maybe it lights up. But I don't know. It just kind of looks like it should be doing something. But maybe it does light up. Around the sides, we've got nothing. Just you can see the aluminum top plate here. We have ABS plastic underneath that. We'll get a closer look at that when we move around the bottom. On the back edge here, we've got USB Type-C port, which is quite recessed, actually. And then I guess this must be the tournament switch. Tournament mode switch. I'm not quite sure which way is which because there's weirdly no label here. Also, I'm not quite sure what this plastic piece underneath it is. Doesn't appear to do anything. Weird. Maybe there's an LED in there. When you turn it on, maybe it indicates tournament mode. Bet you that's what it is. Nothing around this side. Along the front edge, we do, it looks like, have slots to slot in a wrist rest, but there's none included. Presumably you could buy one. Maybe they're magnetic spots. Hard to know. They don't feel like it though. Anyway, I suspect that's for mounting a wrist rest, which Corsair will probably happily sell you. And now we're around the back. So the back is just matte textured black ABS plastic. We have some flip out feet here for one stage of height adjustment. We've got rubber pads here, 4 of them, to prevent it from slipping around on your desk. And we have a sticker here with, the various kinds of information and certifications on it. Other than that, it's just kind of a big black mass on the back here, just a flat surface. It feels very hollow. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. Like, listen. It sounds very hollow, and it feels just as hollow as it sounds. Which really does not add to a sense of quality. You want something weighty and dense feeling for that feeling of quality, whereas here it's just, it really doesn't feel great, does it? Or sound great. Also, all the weird rattling going on. I don't know, you guys. But of course we will reserve our judgment until we've heard it typing. Moving back around the front, let's take a look at the switches and the keycaps. Not in that order. Let's first take a look at the keycaps. Can we pull this off with our bare hands? We can. So, this is one of the things that I was fairly happy to see. We have double shot PBT keycaps. PBT is a nice high quality plastic. It won't shine up with use, so your finger oils won't get it all shiny looking. They're pretty textured, these keys. Nice matte, kind of slightly grainy texture, and they should stay that way. These legends are double shot, which means, as you can see, it's 2 pieces of plastic. The outer black piece, the inner transparent piece. These pieces are literally fused together here, so the light will come on through, and they will never wear off with use because they're literally just 2 pieces of plastic. It's not printed on the surface. They are decently thick. Look at that. That was a nice thick keycap. If we squeeze on it, almost no flex. That's nice. That is a nice feeling keycap. And we have nice clean legends, closed legends. We don't have sort of a stencily look where the round parts of figures don't close properly. We have nice closed legends, nice clean lettering. It's a little bit gamery, slightly squared off, but I don't think it looks too bad. So that looks pretty nice all around. The switches, Corsair OPX switches. Here we have one. We've got a silver Cherry MX style stem, which is reminiscent of Cherry MX speed silver switches. Probably no coincidence there. The stem has some wobble to it, and the top housing looks like a clear polycarbonate. You know what? I'm pretty sure that these are actually hot swappable. Now, you would only be able to hot swap them with other Corsair OPX switches, and I'm not even sure that there are other Corsair OPX switches, but I believe they can at least be pulled out. I don't think they are soldered in there. So let me go grab a switch puller and we'll see. And indeed, that is the case. We have one Corsair OPX switch pulled out right here. We've got that clear, probably polycarbonate upper housing, which allows for the RGB lighting to shine through. We've got a white bottom housing. Don't know what kind of plastic that is, but it's got an interesting kind of cross shape on it. Overall, the switch feels very, very light, and quite a bit of wobble on that stem. I'm gonna move, eh? The action is smooth and very light. And because this is an optical switch, there is actually no mechanism registering the action in there. Rather, it's a light that's being shined through and interrupted by, I guess it probably shines through right down here, if you see, and then it gets interrupted by the stem of the switch entering that space there and interrupting the beam. Corsair is not the first company to do optical switches. We have seen these on a number of boards before. Gateron in particular has a fairly popular series of optical switches, but lots of companies have their own take. It has a very quiet bottom-out sound, listen. But a pretty loud rebound sound, listen. Overall, I don't hear any spring ping per se, but there's quite a bit of rattle going on. Listen. That's just from the lateral wiggle of the stem. And I wonder if that's where all that rattling is coming from with the whole board, you know, when we... Really not sure. If you look underneath the switch here, we have a very old school looking green PCB. It's been a while since I've seen that. We have the optical, light path, I guess, a broadcaster and a receiver on either side of the socket there. And then we have, of course, up top our LED for the RGB. But nothing much else going on there. So yeah, these switches can be at least replaced if you had to, but I don't know that there's any other switches that you could put in here other than just replacements of these. I think this is the only type of OPX switch Corsair makes. I could be wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain it's the case. Okay, while we're here, it's worth pointing out this top plate is a very nice brushed aluminum finish. Looks very nicely machined and fairly high quality, but it is, of course, only that top plate. Below that, it's all plastic. This very hollow feeling plastic. The last question that we have to investigate here is the stabilizers. I have stayed away from the stabilizers intentionally because I kind of want to just find out with you guys here right now how they sound. Not gonna lie, my hopes are not high, but maybe Corsair's doing something with their stabs. That would be great if they were tuning them somehow with some pads or some at least some lube. So let's see how it sounds. Yeah. Okay, so as you can probably hear, there's a lot of rattle going on there. The bottom out is softer than I expected, but the rattle is pretty egregious. These are not lubed by any stretch. We'll take backspace off and take a look just to verify, but I am pretty darn sure they are not. Oh, would you look at that? The switch came out with the keycap. That's so funny. I guess maybe they're a little stiff, a little tight, and the switches are maybe a little loose in the socket. Anyway, that's fine. Yeah, so we just have some basic cherry style stabs. You know what, let's take it one step further. Let's pull these out of here and see. Because now that we've pulled the switch out, it'll be very easy to get the stabilizers out. These are plate mount, of course. Should be very easy to get these out anyway. Come now. Unless Corsair is doing something else with them. Something different. Doesn't look like it though. It should just come right out. Okay, well maybe I was mistaken. These don't really want to come out. They are plate mounted. You can see they just sit on top, standard plate mount stabs. But they're being kind of stubborn. I will try and get them out after we're done here, but they are a little trickier to get out than your average stabilizers. Anyway, also they're white, which is kind of weird on an otherwise blacked out keyboard. So, but you wouldn't notice normally unless you're digging around down there. It's important though, the question of whether they can be easily removed or not, because the stock treatment is frankly kind of atrocious. Like, there's no lubrication of any kind in there. And they just are quite rattly and they really don't feel great or sound that good. So, you know, you could probably improve upon that with a little Band-Aid mod, a little lube, a little clip, if you could get them out. Which we should be able to do, but I'm just kind of struggling with right now. Anyway, I'll let you guys know later how that goes. And that's kind of it. Oh, one more thing. Let's give it a little flex here just to see. So there's really no flex to speak of. A little bit of creaky plastic to start with, but once it's all kind of got its creaks out, no flex. And that's not surprising because we've got this very solid, rigid aluminum top plate here. So that's good to see at the very least. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at the lighting effects, the onboard controls for said lighting effects, then we'll get to the software, and of course, eventually, the typing test. Let's take a look at the RGB. Okay, so here is the Corsair K70 RGB TKL optical plugged in. And actually, as you can see, it does not default to the lights being on. However, that is easily fixed with a press of this button right here. This is the brightness button, and it will cycle through several different brightnesses. I think it's about 5. It starts off as bright as it gets, and we step down. 2, 3, 4, 5, the dimmest setting right there, and off. At its brightest setting, it's bright enough, I would say, but not exceptionally bright. But it'll certainly get the job done unless you're in a very, very bright room. We have a number of different effects, of course. When we don't have the iCUE software installed, the keyboard runs in hardware mode, where we're just using hardware controls. So the lighting effects are actually underneath the number keys. So if we hold down function and press 1, so this is the pinwheel type lighting effect. 2, it's like rain falling. 3 is left to right wave. I believe we can change the direction of some of these with function bracket, perhaps. There we go. So now it's a vertical wave. Function left bracket. Now we're going right to left. And now we're going top to bottom. once again, left to right. So we do have some control over that in hardware. We also have control over effect speed with function plus and minus. Let's speed it up a bit here. So it doesn't get extremely fast, but that's fine. I'll slow it down. That's very slow, but I like it slow. It's nice and chill. What were we on? Function 3? Is that what this was? Yes. 4. Okay, we've got kind of an RGB light bouncing back and forth. 5. Probably a reactive mode. Yes, this appears to be a reactive type mode. 6. A reactive mode that sends waves across the board. 7. Solid colors. No, cycling through colors. Looks like slowly. 8. Breathing through different colors. This looks to be just colored waves, but not the full rainbow. And function 0. This appears to be a solid color mode. Now, I don't know if we can cycle through colors in hardware here. I took a look at the PDF manual, and I don't remember seeing any control for changing the color when we are in... there we go. So if you repeatedly press the same key, the same lighting effect, it'll cycle through the colors. Good, because I was about to be really surprised that they didn't have that option there. Presumably, that'll work with other modes too. Like if we, on the rainbow pinwheel, no, some of these are rainbow mode only. But at least with the solid color option, we can cycle through different colors. So that's about it in terms of the backlighting control. We do have a couple of other things. Of course, we have the dedicated media keys over here. You can see that they are backlit, which is nice. The profile key is this one right here. Brightness key, as we said earlier, and this is a Windows lock key. They have a dedicated Windows lock key, which is kind of weird, but there it is. The mute key, of course, is backlit, and then the volume roller, which I can confirm does work, and feels nice and solid, actually. I was worried that not having the little notches in it would make it feel hard to use, but no, it stops pretty much on a dime, and it's very easy to dial in your volume. So that is all well and good. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you here, which is kind of neat, is this tournament switch. So the tournament mode switch, again, disables all macros, disables all backlighting effects, and it's this one right here. So I speculated that this was an LED. It is not, actually. Oh, you can see, okay, it doesn't disable backlighting, but it seems to disable custom backlighting. And it looks like it fixes it on just a solid red backlight. But what this is a little door that actually flips up. So if I do this, there, it locks that switch in place so it can't be tampered with. We have this bright red LED here to indicate to us that this is in fact tournament mode. I suppose that's so that you know, organizers could easily just take a look at everyone's keyboards and determine whether they have any funny business going on. So we can just flip this back down and turn off tournament mode, and we're back to our previous backlighting settings. The one other thing I will mention while we're here is this cable here is the cable that comes with the keyboard. It fits very nicely into that little socket in the back, but I did notice that it has some wobble to it, and if you push or pull the cable the right way, the keyboard will actually disconnect. So there's some funkiness going on with that Type-C USB port, and I confirmed it's not just the cable, because I have another cable, my usual one, that I tried it with, and it was having an even worse time. It was constantly connecting and disconnecting, just constantly dropping the connection. So I actually switched over back to the stock cable here that ships with the device, and it seems better, more reliable. But man, if it's shipping from the factory like that, I'm a little worried that with repeated plugging and unplugging, that USB Type-C port back there is eventually just going to give up the ghost. Now, as with any of these kinds of quality control things, it could be that this is just a lemon in that regard, and that it's not a systematic problem that these boards have. I will give Corsair the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's not a universal issue with these boards. But nonetheless, I thought it was important to mention it to you guys because if your USB port doesn't work, your keyboard doesn't work. So, all right. And that's basically it. As you can see, the shine through keycaps look pretty nice. The legends look nice and sharp. The PBT keycaps do a nice job of diffusing that light without being too shiny. They've got kind of a softer look to them, which I like. The colors look vivid. I don't know that the gradients are smooth per se. It doesn't quite have that smoothness that I've seen on some other boards, but if nothing else, the colors are fairly saturated, so that's good, I suppose. Other lighting features such as per key backlighting, custom arrangements and things we will have to configure in the Corsair iCUE software, which we are going to look at right now. And here we have Corsair's iCUE software. Now this was easy to find and download off of their website. It is a whopping 1 gigabyte download, which is not very big by the standards of modern games, but is pretty darn large for a piece of software designed to manage your keyboard RGB and key bindings. However, the reason it's so large is because it is for much more than just managing your keyboard. This is Corsair's a single piece of software, their interface for all of their other hardware, which includes obviously keyboards, but mice as well, but in addition, power supplies, AIO, liquid coolers, their cases. I bet you can control the RGB for their cases with this software, I reckon. And so it's for all the hardware in the Corsair ecosystem, which is why it's so big. You can see it also installed without, really asking about it. Some monitoring stuff down here, monitoring my, my video card and CPU and all that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of more of a system management software, I guess, but it will also control our keyboard. It also advertises to us a voice mod over here, which we're going to close. So I'm not interested in that. Oh, weird. Closing it doesn't get rid of this panel. I thought this whole panel would, but instead we just kind of have a big empty space over here. That's odd, isn't it? Okay. It looks like we have profiles that we can load up. That's good. We have scenes. I guess we'll change the background. Let's switch it to, I don't know, rain. Sounds ASMR-ish. Well, that didn't really do anything, did it? Strange. Just... Huh. What is happening? Oh gosh, what have I done? Okay. Yes, we saw the Pro Switch. Sorry, I think I was calling it a tournament switch earlier, but it's a Pro Switch. Yes, that's fair. Your device supports hardware lighting and key assignments. Yes. This means you can use your favorite lighting and assignments even when iCUE is off. So that allows you to load it up onto the device. Yes, got it. Okay. I'm I'm not sure what we pressed. Okay, home. I guess I just clicked on here somewhere. That's all I did. Funny that these don't seem to do anything. These profile, or these whatever these are. Does it do anything if we... Nope. Okay, I don't know. Oh, this... Oh, hold on. This device is controlled by scenes. The lighting effects tab is disabled. You can disable scenes for all devices from the home page by pressing the button below. Got it. So these are actually controlling the backlighting, and presumably they would control the lighting across all your Corsair iCUE enabled RGB devices. That's what's happening here. So it's not about the software at all. It's about the hardware. Understood. Oh my goodness, we have a full dashboard here, all kinds of monitoring. You can look at my RAM clocks. Of course, this would control RGB on RAM and monitor RAM as well. For some reason, scrolling isn't scrolling. Maybe because of this. Welcome to the dashboard. We've got widgets, yes. Sensors, yes. Okay, wow. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do here, and I'm not going to get into all of this because, there we go, now we can scroll. Because this is really not salient to the point at hand, which is the keyboard. But anyway, good to know all this is here if you want it. As far as our keyboard goes, looks like we can jump straight to different settings here. Let's jump to key assignments. There's all kinds of little tutorial pop-ups here. Select a keyboard key on the device. Image, press it on the device to assign a shortcut, indeed. So we tap E there, we can assign it to all kinds of things, various keystrokes, including combinations. Language keys, interesting, that's kind of cool. I've never seen that before. Mouse functions, other keyboard functions that you can pick just by clicking it. Our E is now R, I guess. Text. You can type the text to be used for this assignment here. I don't quite know what the point of that would be, but I guess you can press a key and have it. Oh, I see. This is like a macro mode almost. Yes, that's not almost. It is. It is a macro mode. Media controls, launching apps. You can disable keys, switch profiles. There's a proper macro recorder here as well, with general and advanced modes. All kinds of voice mod functions, but I don't have voice mod installed, so I guess voice mod must be Corsair software. Goodness, okay, lots of options there. Fascinating. A similar situation with just fewer options for the hardware mode. So some of these are only available. Yeah, it's okay. We don't want to save that. It's just giving us a warning here. Your hardware key assignments have not been saved yet. That's fine. No, we can cancel that. Some of the options available here in the software mode are only available when running iCUE. So, fair. Same with lighting effects. We have standard lighting effects or hardware lighting effects. Let's see about per key backlighting. Or what is this here? Oh my goodness. Okay, this is called watercolor, this effect apparently. Watercolor spectrum. So it shows us a preview here, but it doesn't actually change it on the board until what? Let's just switch to rain and see at what point does it update on the board. Do we have to go to device settings? Clear all, profile, add current profile. Interesting. Goodness, okay, there's a lot going on here, you guys. I'm just trying to figure out how to push the lighting settings that we're configuring here to the keyboard. I'm looking for an OK or a save key or something like that, but I'm not seeing one. Well, what if we click the current profile? Overwrite, copy to iCUE. No, let's add a different one then. Save current profile, sure. That didn't seem to do anything. What is happening here, you guys? New lighting layer. We have the previous layer as well still. Delete it. I am not sure how to push these changes to the board. It should not be that difficult. Okay, let's try hardware lighting. Let's change this to rainbow wave. Or something different. Let's change it to rain. That'll be very obvious to tell. Then we go to device settings. We go add current profile, save. Do I have to switch to profile 2, perhaps? No. What gives? Oh gosh, this should not be this confusing, you guys. Maybe I'm just being really thick, but you are now modifying hardware lighting. Your device will be playing the selected lighting effect when iCUE is not running. Okay, let's go back to regular lighting effects. There's no information here to help us. Lighting library. Use library for shared lighting across profiles and devices. Sure, but we don't care about that. Where's the activate button? Where's the do the thing button, you guys? What is happening? If we go back to home, nothing has changed. I am perplexed. Save to library, copy, rename, delete. What am I missing here, you guys? Oh, this is layer visibility. So that's invisible. Let's toggle to visible now. No, that doesn't help. Okay, I am clearly going to have to spend some time trying to figure this out. I don't need to bring you guys along on this adventure. Clearly there is a way to push changes that I'm making in the software over to the keyboard here, but none of these changes seem to be coming over. There's quite a few settings for each of these. We've got quick lighting zone, so we can choose to apply the preset to just a portion of the board, it looks like. We can change speed, direction, start with profile, stop, never. There's some strange profile thing going on here that I'm not quite grasping. And maybe you guys have figured it out and I'm just being a big idiot, but I am having a really hard time. Like, there should be an apply button, you know, or an OK button, but there's nothing. What if we just delete all the colors? I feel like maybe the keyboard is running in the hardware profile and not receiving any of the software stuff from iCUE, but again, I don't know how to force it to do that. Perplexing. Well, let's take a look at performance here. We have when win lock is on, disable Alt Tab, Alt F4, Shift Tab, Win key. Okay, fair. Color indicators for the lock keys. Colors for the brightness and profile buttons here. That's kind of nice. Frustrating, or not frustratingly, but confusingly, polling rate, which is an aspect of performance, is actually under device settings, not performance. But here's where we can crank up our polling rate to 8,000. It will use additional system processing power. Most people probably won't need this, but then again, on a modern system, I doubt that it uses enough power to be a problem. So let's select anyway. I just reconnected, unconnected and reconnected the keyboard, it looks like. Okay, fair. If we go back to device settings, we're now running an 8,000 hertz polling rate. Here's a global brightness, a layout option. We are, of course, US North America, but there are many other options there. You can change that tournament mode backlight color, which defaulted to red previously, but looks like you can change that. You can check for firmware updates here. That's always good to see, and I'm willing to bet you can check for software updates in the iCUE settings here, which are extensive. Indeed, you can. And you can check for firmware updates here as well. So, you know, all the options are there, and then some, everything you would expect to see, and more, actually. Seems like fairly well considered software, but I must admit I'm fairly aggravated that I can't figure out how to push the changes from... Oh, now it's working. Now it's working, you guys. What gives? That was odd. But now it automatically updates. Just like that. Fascinating. Well, I don't know what was happening there previously, but clearly there was some kind of issue where it wasn't in software mode. It was reading from the hardware mode settings, I guess. And I suppose switching that polling rate must have refreshed it somehow, reconnected it into software mode. So, okay. I'm slightly less aggravated now. It looks like that is quite doable. And we were getting confused. I was getting confused because it was not operating properly. So whether that's a glitch or whether that was just my mistake, I'm not quite sure. But as far as per key backlighting goes, if I click on a key, it looks like I can right-click it. Yes, we can. Pick a static color for a key, or select for a single key animations, which is kind of weird, but it looks like it could be done. Interesting. Okay, that's good. I'm not sure what these lighting layers are about, though. You know, you would think that whatever one layer would overwrite the others, so what's the point? Anyway, this is clearly pretty complex software. I'm going to have to spend some time playing around with it. I will do so on my own time. I will let you guys know a bit later in the review what my ultimate thoughts are about it. Right off the bat, it seems fully featured. It seems maybe not quite as intuitive as I would like, but I think the big problem was that it just wasn't working properly initially. So anyway, I will spend time with that. I will let you guys know a bit later what my thoughts are. Right now, however, it is time for the typing test. We're going to hear what this board sounds like in action, because at the end of the day, that's perhaps the most important part of it, the actual tactile usage, the feel and sound of the keyboard. So let's get on with that. right, we've now had a chance to unbox this thing, inspect it up close, take a look at its fancy RGB lighting, take a look at the very fancy iCUE software from Corsair, and of course, take the K70 for a typing test so you could see and hear it in action. I have a couple of things that I wanted to get back to, stuff I promised that I would tell you about later in the review. Now is later. The first thing is that the warranty on this keyboard appears to be 2 years, not 1 year, but 2 years, which is about a year longer than many other companies warranty their mechanical keyboards for. So props to Corsair for that 2-year warranty period. The second thing is I struggled mightily to get the stabilizers off this thing, and I couldn't. If you really spent more time with it, if you took off all the keycaps and switches around the stabilizers and maybe really reefed on them or something, you might be able to get them off. But I had no success. I'm not sure if they are affixed through some other means that I am unfamiliar with, or if they're just really stubborn and in there really tight. Either way, they're clearly plate-mounted stabilizers, right? They're not screw-in stabs, but something is holding them in there tightly, which is too bad, because it would be really nice to modify these stabilizers. A little Band-Aid mod, a little lube, maybe a clip, something like that, because at stock, they've had very little attention paid to them, and it is apparent in the typing feel and sound, as you may have just noticed. I will say, once you get up to speed, they don't sound quite as bad as I had initially feared, but still, they don't sound premium, that's for sure. It's clear that not a whole lot of attention has been paid to those stabilizers. Finally, I just wanted to let you know that after those initial glitches using Corsair's iCUE software, I've kind of come around on it. I think it's pretty good. It is, at the very least, very fully featured. It has some nice little features that other keyboard software I've used in past does not have. And of course, it integrates nicely, in theory, with your entire RGB ecosystem, especially if you're using Corsair products. Interestingly, it also detected my Asus motherboard, which does have RGB lighting on it, so it seems like it can manage other RGB components as well outside of Corsair's hardware ecosystem. So the big downside of the iCUE software then is that it is quite bloated if all you need it for is managing your keyboard. It comes with a lot of extraneous stuff that you don't need or care about, probably. Nonetheless, it does seem fairly well made. It's not quite as obtuse as I had originally thought it was. And as I said, if nothing else, it is very fully featured and does pretty much everything you would want a piece of keyboard software to do. So, with that out of the way, it's time to run down the pros and the cons, the things I really liked and the things I maybe didn't like so much about Corsair's K70 RGB TKL keyboard. Let's get to it. And of course, you guys know me, Mr. Brightside. I like to start positive, so let's start with the pros. The first thing that I like about this keyboard is its solid brushed aluminum top plate. It feels very sturdy. It looks nice, if that's the kind of aesthetic you're going for, and it does confer a feeling of quality to the keyboard. Similarly, the double-shot PBT keycaps are really nice to see. They're absolutely an upgrade from Corsair's old keycaps, like on my 2013 K70 model, which were just UV-coated ABS. Now, these double-shot PBT keycaps are much thicker, much more durable, much nicer texture. They're not going to wear out or shine up over time. Overall, a dramatic improvement in that regard. Another thing that Corsair is to be commended for is the inclusion of dedicated media controls. This is something that many keyboards have been removing as of late in order to perhaps cut costs or provide a more compact footprint, but it seems to be a popular feature, especially in the mainstream market that Corsair services, and so it's a nice addition and definitely adds to the value of the keyboard. Another really nice thing to see is finally the inclusion of a detachable USB cable. This is certainly something that sets this keyboard apart, this K70 apart from my old K70. And in theory, the detachable cable could extend the lifespan of the keyboard, because if you were to have an issue with your cable, you can just get a new cable. That's great. However, in practice, it actually might be more of a liability than a life extender, because as we saw, it adds another potential point of failure, being that USB Type-C port on the board. And that is indeed the issue we ran into with this review sample of the K70. I found that USB-C port to be very finicky, and you have to be very careful and particular when plugging in the USB-C cable, or else you'll run into connection issues. Now, I have no way of knowing if this is a problem that is typical of many Corsair K70s of this model, or if I just got unlucky and got a lemon. I have a sample size of exactly 1. Of course, it's not a good look when your sample size of 1 has QC issues like that, but I'm willing to give Corsair the benefit of the doubt here and assume that it's not a widespread issue. I can't really conclude one way or the other, which is why I am making sure that you all know about it. But in theory, I'm happy to see Corsair move to the detachable cable, and it is something I would like to see them continue with in the future, as long as all that QC is up to snuff. Another plus point for Corsair's latest K70 is that tournament mode switch on the back. Yes, it's maybe a little bit gimmicky, but in such a crowded market, it's really important for a keyboard to differentiate itself from its competitors somehow. And Corsair is clearly aiming this keyboard towards the esports and pro gamer kind of market, so that tournament mode switch actually makes quite a bit of sense in this product, and might be useful for some people who are using this in a competitive setting, or for tournament organizers who want to be able to enforce a, no macros and fixed backlighting type policy for one reason or another. So the tournament switch is a neat little addition. Speaking of esports, perhaps this keyboard's greatest strength is that it is extremely fast and very performant, starting with the switches themselves, which have an actuation point of only 1 millimeter, so you barely have to press down on them before they register, and an overall shorter travel distance. That means even if you're pressing harder, bottoming out your switches, there's less distance for that switch to go down, so it'll rebound faster and potentially allow you to actuate that key faster, get those keystrokes in there, get your APM up. Paired with this is, of course, Corsair's latest Axon processing, which enables that 8,000 hertz polling rate, which is, I have to say, kind of ludicrously fast. Like, I really don't think that human reflexes are capable of, detecting things that happen in an eighth of a millisecond. But nonetheless, if ultimate performance is what matters to you, and the numbers, the technical specifications are important to you, Corsair's keyboard is best in class in that regard. I also want to commend Corsair's feature-rich software. This is a bit of a mixed bag. As I was saying earlier, some people might see this as just a bloated piece of software with a bunch of extraneous features that they don't need, and that is probably true for many users, but the features that are there are well considered, and they have some nice little additions that I've not seen before in other keyboard software. And if you are someone that has other Corsair hardware or other RGB hardware that plays nice with Corsair's iCUE software, then it's probably pretty nice to be able to sync your colors across all your various peripherals and pieces of PC hardware. Also, I'm really glad to see that Corsair does not require you to sign up and create an account to use their iCUE software, unlike some of the competitors. Razer's Synapse software comes to mind. So props to Corsair for not forcing me to sign up for a stupid account just to use the software for my keyboard. And finally, I was impressed by Corsair's 2-year warranty. 1 year is pretty standard for most mechanical keyboards, so standing behind the product with a 2-year warranty does give some indication of Corsair's confidence in the quality and longevity of this product, and that paired with their reputation and their brand name is certainly going to be the major driver for many people considering this keyboard. So props to Corsair for the 2-year warranty. However, not all is perfect with Corsair's newest K70, so we do have some cons to discuss, some fairly major ones if I'm being honest. The first and probably biggest in my mind is that overall this keyboard has a very unrefined typing sound and feel. What I mean by that is this sounds and feels kind of like a keyboard that I might have had 5 years ago, or maybe almost 10 years ago, like my old K70. There have been so many advancements and refinements in the mechanical keyboard space, especially over the last 5 years, and it's a real shame that Corsair seems to have integrated basically none of them into their current K70 design, and as a result it ends up feeling very dated and quite unrefined by modern standards. Specifically what I mean by this is it is quite loud, it is quite rattly, there is no apparent sound dampening, no foam layers, no silicone layers to control sound or vibration propagation throughout the board. Because of that, it feels quite light and hollow despite having that aluminum top plate. The bottom ABS plastic shell just feels very empty and light and cheap and hollow. The OPX switches themselves, while highly performant, are not my favorites. They are reasonably smooth and they have a reasonably satisfying bottom out and kind of a nice rebound to them, but the stem is quite wobbly and they have a very strange rattle to them when combined with the fact that there's apparently no sound dampening going on in the board itself, and the fact that Corsair really didn't bother, I should say, to do anything special with the stabilizers from the factory. You end up with what is a very uninspiring typing experience. It's not awful. It does have a satisfaction of its own, I suppose, in a kind of throwback retro sort of way. But it pales in comparison to the refined, considered typing experiences that are available from a multitude of other keyboards around this price point these days. So that's the biggest con, I guess, is what I'm calling an unrefined typing sound and feel. And I would really like to see Corsair rise to the challenge and integrate some more of those modern mechanical keyboard design sensibilities into their next iteration of the K70. The second con is concerning the hot swap sockets. They are hot swappable, which means the switches are not soldered in there. You can yank them out and replace them if you want, but they can only be replaced with other Corsair OPX switches, which very much limits their usefulness because, as far as I know, there is only one kind of Corsair OPX switch. You could replace a faulty switch. That's a nice feature to have, but in terms of customization options, there basically are none. So this keyboard is not suitable if you want to experiment a little bit with getting your hands dirty, customizing a keyboard a tiny bit. Maybe try out some different kinds and weights and feels of switches or something like that. So that's unfortunate. It is basically a restriction of the technology as far as I understand it. The PCB for optical switches is fundamentally different than that for traditional mechanical switches. So that's just a limitation of the tech that they have chosen. And I am not quite sure if the non-optical switch version of this board, which does exist, I'm not quite sure if it has wider hot swap compatibility. That is something that if you are looking at buying this keyboard, you will want to research, because that could be the deciding factor between the optical switches and the traditional mechanical switch version. The third issue that I'd like to point out with this board is one that I already spoke about a little bit in the previous pros section, and that is the flaky USB Type-C port. As I explained in that section, I had some serious connectivity issues with the USB-C port on this keyboard. You have to position the cable just so. If you have it a little too far one way or a little too far the other, the keyboard will disconnect or repeatedly connect and disconnect. It's a little bit of a mess. I will say the included stock cable did hold a more stable connection in that regard than my other USB-C cable, the one that I typically use for all my keyboards. So with the stock cable, it's a bit less of an issue. Nonetheless, it should work with any USB Type-C cable, really. And I can guarantee you that that USB-C cable, my custom one that I use with all my keyboards, it's not the issue here. It works fine with every other keyboard. This is the only one that I've ever had problems with. It didn't matter the polling rate, 1000 hertz, 4000 hertz, 8000 hertz. The problem is with the physical connectivity of the USB Type-C port on this board. Now, as I was saying earlier, I only have a sample size of 1. So I have no way of knowing if I just got unlucky, got a bad board with a faulty USB Type-C port, or if this is a more widespread problem with Corsair K70s. The good news is that it is warranted for 2 years, so if you run into this issue, you should be able to swap it out pretty easily through Corsair's warranty process, and I'm sure they would honor the warranty for something like that, a faulty USB Type-C board. But hopefully, it's not a widespread issue. Nonetheless, it is somewhat concerning that my sample size of 1 did have this issue, so I thought that it was important to put it here in the cons. And the final unfortunate aspect of this keyboard is the pricing. I have to say, at the MSRP of $160, this keyboard offers pretty weak value. There are a multitude of other keyboards that, personally, I would rather use at that price point. Now, my criteria for what makes a good keyboard and my priorities might be different from yours. If top performance, the ultimate speed, esports pro quality gaming is the most important thing to you, then maybe Corsair's features make sense for you at that price point. Maybe they're more compelling. For me, though, I'm looking for the whole package. I want something that is performant. I want something that feels good to use, that sounds good to use as well, and that offers all the modern features that I've come to expect from modern mechanical keyboards. And in that regard, Corsair's K70 here falls a little bit short. So, good news is that mechkeys.com, who sent over the review sample here, is selling the OPX for a little bit less, $150 US, and I suspect that it does go on sale for even less than that with some regularity, I'm guessing. So maybe that makes the value proposition a little bit better if you can save some dollars on it. However, at the MSRP of $160 US, the Corsair K70 RGB TKL OPX offers pretty weak value. So what then is my final verdict on Corsair's latest K70 RGB TKL Optical-Mechanical Switch Edition? Well, as you have probably gathered from this review, it's a bit of a mixed bag. To to its credit, the K70's aluminum top plate, double-shot PBT keycaps, and detachable USB Type-C cable feel modern and durable, if we ignore the fact that the USB-C port on this particular review sample had some connectivity issues. And the board's technical specifications are also excellent, offering incredible performance, lightning fast polling rates of up to 8,000 Hertz, which is insane. Class-leading performance from a technical perspective. But truth be told, I can't really tell the difference between a keystroke that's registered in 1 millisecond versus one that registers in a quarter or an eighth of a millisecond. And I'm willing to bet that you probably can't tell the difference either. And what I can perceive, however, is how a keyboard sounds and feels to use. And in that regard, the Corsair K70 RGB TKL feels undeniably dated. Corsair's OPX Optical-Mechanical switches, while very fast, are somewhat wobbly and kind of loud, especially for linears. That extends to the whole keyboard overall. There's apparently no sound dampening material in there, no foam, no silicone or anything like that, which means that the overall typing experience is somewhat loud and clattery and rattly, and this is certainly not helped by the fact that Corsair has paid very little attention to the stabilizers on this keyboard, which, in my opinion, are one of the most important aspects of the typing feel and sound and the overall usage experience. Well-tuned stabilizers can make or break the feel of a mechanical keyboard, and the ones here just feel and sound cheap. And so overall, the keyboard feels and sounds kind of cheap. It's got a hollowness, it's got a lightness, it's got a rattliness to it that really aren't befitting of a keyboard at this price point. I've used $50 keyboards that sound and feel better than this. The kind of typing experience that Corsair's latest K70 offers was par for the course almost a decade ago and would have even been acceptable, say, 5 years ago, but not in 2022 and not for $160 US. Mechanical keyboards have come a long way in the last decade, and especially so in the last 5 years, and Corsair needs to up their game if they want to keep pace with some of the hungry newer competitors that are gunning for the mainstream market, competitors like Mountain Keyboards or Glorious Gaming. Now, don't get me wrong, the Corsair K70 is not a disastrous keyboard. It's not even a bad keyboard. It does everything you need a gaming keyboard to do, and then some. And again, it is partly a matter of your priorities. For me, I'm looking for the whole package, something that performs well, something that sounds nice, something that just feels nice to have my fingers on and interact with. Corsair's K70 gets some of that right, but not all of it. And it does have its moments. There are times where it is somewhat pleasant to use. And clearly people like it well enough. I mean, Corsair is doing just fine, and they are one of the most popular manufacturers of PC peripherals in the world. Clearly, brand name and legacy count for a lot. But I can't help but be a bit disappointed by the fact that it feels like Corsair has been resting on its laurels for all these years. 2022's Corsair K70 RGB TKL that we took a look at here today doesn't really feel or even look appreciably better than the 2013 model that I used all those years ago that I showed you at the beginning of the review, and that is absolutely disappointing. I would love to see Corsair rise to the challenge of upgrading, refining, redesigning their K70 series for the modern era, bringing it up into 2022 so that it can truly compete in an objective fashion with the usage experience of the glut of competitors that are available on the market these days. As it stands, Corsair's K70 RGB TKL is a competent but largely uninspiring keyboard that mostly fails to stand out from the competition in a very crowded market, except by virtue of its brand name and legacy. In my opinion, there are simply better options for your money in 2022. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of yet another relaxing review. If you are by chance intrigued by what you saw here today and are interested in picking up a Corsair K70 of your own, there is of course a link at the top of the video description where you can click through and do just that. Big thanks to mechkeys.com for sending over today's review sample. They're selling this Corsair K70 for $150 US, which is $10 less than the MSRP listed on Corsair's website. So click on through, check that out if you're interested, and check out MechKeys' large collection of other interesting and intriguing mechanical keyboard products as well. And of course, a big thank you to this video's sponsor, Into the AM. They of the rad graphic tees. If you are interested in picking up some new duds so that you can look sweet in this heat, make sure you click on through that video at the top of the description as well, and also pinned in the top comment there. With that link, you can save 10% on your entire order through Into the AM, and you will support the channel while you are at it, which many of you have already done, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you all for your very kind support, and thank you once again to Into the AM for sponsoring this video. Thank you all for watching today's video. I hope that you found it informative, and I hope that you found it relaxing. And of course, I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of relaxing reviews. Bye for now, my friends.